You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So a question I got this weekend was, how much longer for the airports to go back to normal? We're not sure. Trump did sign an executive order to allow there to be immediate funding to TSA agents. This executive order directed the newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen to pay TSA employees, quote, with the compensation and benefits that would have accrued to them if not for the Democratic-led DHS shutdown, using available department funds. So the reports are suggesting that the money is going to be taken from the money that was allocated to the DHS through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And Trump told reporters on Air Force One that right now there's no end date. He is going to pay them as long as they can, according to the Intelligencer. Meanwhile, the Senate and House are on vacation. The Senate is going to re-adjourn on Thursday. I'm not sure if they're going to physically be in town or not. My guess is they don't want to deal with what's going on in the airports. We are hearing that things got a little better. However, Houston's Bush International Airport saw 38.3% of its TSA workforce still stay home on Saturday. 30% of TSA employees at Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta, and New York City also didn't come in on Saturday. By Monday, which is today, many of them should have gotten some pay. And so from what we understand, things have improved. But then again, Monday is not very a high travel day like the weekend is. So even though conditions appear to improve, that could also be there's fewer individuals. But we do believe that some TSA agents came back. The Houston Chronicle reports that Bush International Airport, home to, 3 to 4 hour long security lines, did see a decrease in wait time. And some waits were averaged about an hour. So that's a good sign. One thing, though, that confused me, though, one thing that confused me is when I was looking at the news, you saw a lot of people in line with big suitcases. Now, that's not TSA. Because by the time you go to TSA, you have to check your bag. You don't get to bring a large suitcase when you go through TSA. And so I'm wondering if a lot of these lines are the airline issues. So, for example, I have to go to McCarran. We don't call it McCarran anymore. We call it Harry Reid Airport, which, by the way, most Las Vegas people don't like to call it Harry Reid Airport. They'd rather it be Las Vegas Airport or something like that. But it's Harry Reid Airport now. And the last few times I have traveled, Southwest Airlines lines to drop off your bag has been an hour to 2 hour wait. Now, that's not TSA. That's Southwest Airlines. And so when I see a lot of these videos of people in lines and the news is like, oh my God, look at what the Republicans are doing, or look what the Democrats are doing. I've seen people with big suitcases. I go, that's pre-TSA. What are you talking about? That's not, that's you're trying to drop off your luggage at the United bag drop or the Southwest bag drop. So that's a little confusing. So you got to be really, really careful seeing what you're seeing. I do believe that it has been a mess because you could tell when it's the TSA line because people are trying to drink their water quickly, throw their water out. They only have their backpack with them. But that's just something that I noticed. So we do believe it's going to get better, but it's not going to be completely better. Apparently, many TSA agents did quit. I think at least 500 TSA agents quit. Thousands more now looking at getting second jobs. Now, in terms of the statistics, there are 50,000 frontline officers. So losing 500 is a lot. 0.1%. That's a lot. But the TSA is still a very vibrant, robust administration. And this is 50,000 frontlines. Now they work at 440 airports. They screen 2.5 million passengers a day. According to Google, as of 2024, the workforce was 62.5% male, 37.5% female. The average male age was 41.8. Average female age was 39.1. Their salary, anywhere from 34 grand to 55 grand a year. Now you wonder why many of them are like, to hell with this. I mean, they're going to need more pay. And I don't blame any TSA agent for calling out. And the funny thing is if all the TSA agents did call out and say, not even call out, if we're not getting paid and we're shut down, that means we don't go in. And the airports would have closed. And then within 24 hours, Congress would have had the funding and everything reopened. Instead, they're going back and forth because they know that their constituents can still fly, because they're hoping on the honor system that TSA agents will, out of the goodness of their heart, still go into work without getting paid. Now, they should be bonused like crazy. Anybody that didn't call out that came in should get additional money, so they're incentivized. But honestly, the next time this happens, all right, if TSA is closed, and mind you, I got a flight coming up. I got a lot of flights coming up. But I want this to end. This is BS. This is ridiculous. How here we are going, almost 2 months into this. The experienced officers may make anywhere from 46 grand to $75,000. They're going to be able to find other jobs. Now, why isn't everybody? Why did only 500 quit? Why didn't more quit? Well, maybe it is harder to find a job with AI and all that. Maybe they really like the job. Maybe they know this isn't, the TSA's fault or Trump's fault or, Congress. Maybe they know that this is something that, is going to pass because people are getting ticked. But I got to tell you, passengers better be nice to these TSA agents. What I recommend you do is check wait lines. You can't always trust them. Because sometimes online will say, oh, yeah, it's only 10, 15 minutes long. It's not like Disneyland. I would always prepare just in case. And don't always expect you'll get to do clear or TSA pre-check. If they don't have enough agents, you're going to have to go the regular line. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
back on the Dr. Dolly. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So there is something that is frustrating the baby boomers and the Gen X's and even some of the millennials, and it's called the Gen X stare. Now, I understand it, and I think it's misunderstood. I get why some of them are doing it, but I'm hearing just from so many people going, I think this person's autistic. I think this person has autism. Why? Well, because they stare. Could it be a seizure? And I'm like, well, what are they staring at? And I didn't understand what everybody's talking about. They're like, my kid or his friend or whatever. They'd just be like, I'm like, it could be a petit mal or absence seizure or whatever. It could be have you asked them about it? They said, yeah, they do it on purpose. Okay, well, then it's not a seizure. Just they're giving you a stare. Why? Well, there's a lot of different reasons for this. One, there's, I guess, this TikTok trend, but there's, I think it's a little deeper. So basically what the stare is you say something, maybe it's funny or it's something controversial or political. And what the Gen Z person is doing, and maybe they're also a millennial, who knows, is rather than responding, they'll just go, they'll just stare. And to somebody who's like me, like Gen X, I'm like, you good? You good? Respond. I'm like, taking out my light, checking their pupils, pupillary reflex. But I understand it. Now it's, just the silence, the stare. Why are they doing that? Well, apparently they don't want to escalate things. Gen Zs and Gen Alpha and now Generation Beta, it's a different world. Gen X's and baby boomers and traditionalists would talk, would debate, would go to the local pub. We had sports pub where I was near my school. We would talk about stuff. Who cares? What Bill Clinton said or George Bush wants to do, whatever. We'll talk about it. We don't necessarily fight. But now everything is so charged. Everything is so bad. Not to mention, people are videotaping. I was watching White Lotus months ago. I liked the White Lotus really, really good. But they did this scene where they made a really big deal about one of the friends voting for Trump. It went on for minutes. And so I think a lot of the Gen Zs are like, I don't want to get into this. I thought we're supposed to have discord and discuss things and debate, and everybody has, this is a free country, and so a lot of times what they'll do is if they don't want to engage, they'll just go silent, either as a defense mechanism or to stop the conversation. I've noticed this with my kids. I don't, talk about things unless they want to talk about it. And I noticed with one of my children, he'll want to talk about something. And then I'll bring up some good points. Then, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, you brought it up, but that's okay. Not going to say that. I'm here to talk. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay. Okay. If you wanted to bring it up, that's fine. But and so maybe there's this, when a conversation gets uncomfortable. For me, I like diving deep. Maybe it's because that's how we were trained. I remember when I was a first year medical student, we'd be interviewing World War II vets, and we were supposed to ask them about sexual history. And I'm like, do you have sex with men, women, or both? That was a question you had to ask as a medical student. And the Vietnam vet is like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to tell you that. None of your damn business. Okay, sorry, yes, sir. And then you'd move on. And I remember my attending and the teacher going, no, you dig deeper. I'm like, but he doesn't want to talk about his sex life. We butt out. The Gen Zs, much different thinking. They're like, look, Yeah, I don't want to go into this conversation. I don't want to talk about it. And then I think it really freaked them out what happened with the USA gold hockey team, where they get the honor of speaking to the president. And then Donald Trump makes a joke about how if he doesn't invite the women hockey group to the White House, he could get impeached. And then a bunch of the hockey players laughed. Whether they thought it was funny, whether it was a nervous laugh, or whether it was, the commander-in-chief is making a joke, you'd be polite and laugh. Now, I think a lot of Gen Zs are like, wait a second, if you laugh at somebody's joke reflexively, now you are guilty by association. And so now you're seeing more Gen Zs go, okay, I'm just not going to laugh at the joke. And you're like, well, yeah, like I heard this joke a while back. It's an old joke, but I heard it again. I was outside. I think I was at maybe it was at the game. So it's an old joke where now we have NFL refs that are women. And I remember I wrote on Facebook, I go, oh, how exciting. We have a ref that we have now female NFL refs. And then somebody goes, yeah, but the problem is they bring up penalties from 2 years ago. And I think that's funny. Yeah, all right. So they bring up penalties. Yeah. So somebody was making that same joke. And, if a Gen Z heard that, they might get quiet. Because if they laugh, then it looks like they're anti-women. And I'm wondering if what's happening to the Gen Z, and I understand, sometimes there's these stupid trends that people do on TikTok or whatever, but I'm seeing this with the younger generation where they don't laugh at jokes. And so people think, well, maybe they have autism because they don't think it's funny. And autistic individuals are very smart. They don't laugh at bad jokes. We all will be like, that's funny. Yeah, well, that's funny. Yeah, but somebody with autism is like, I'm not going to fake laugh. I'm just not, why would I waste any energy and why would I fake a laugh? So they're very smart, people with autism. And so is it that we have maybe more neurodiverse Gen Zs? We could. But I think a lot of them are like, I don't want to go there. If I'm going to get in trouble for laughing or looking like I am agreeing to something that is, it got to the point where if you supported the men's hockey team and you were like, way to go, you were then MAGA. And it's like, we support all our athletes. We support the women, the men, anybody who won a gold. We support but it got that bad. Same thing with an American flag. When did wearing an American flag mean you were only one political party? We're Americans. Americans have Democrats and Republicans. But so I'm wondering if the Gen Zs are like, I don't know what to say or where my place is. And so if somebody's going to say something and I don't know how to respond without getting into trouble later or it affecting me in perpetuity, I'm just not going to say it. And so you're having less and less conversations. I noticed this. Patients are saying, the doctor won't talk to me. He'll only say a couple words and he won't say anything. Well, I know why. It's because doctors have been sued. And if a patient says, well, the doctor said, like look at how doctors can't talk about your obesity. It's called fat shaming. So now doctors like, okay, nice to meet you. What do you want? Okay, here's your medicine. See ya. I'm like, you aren't going to talk to them about their weight? No, they're going to accuse me of fat shaming. They're going to accuse me of doing something. So the less you say, the better. Lawyers have trained doctors to say as little as possible. If you're in a court case and they go, is the sky blue? Just say yes or no. But if you say, well, I think the sky is this, now you've opened yourself up to more liability. And I'm thinking that's what these Gen Zs and a lot of people are doing now. We're like, I'm just going to say as little as possible. This way, I don't accidentally say something or do something like social media. The more you put on social media, the more you risk getting into trouble. So now people are like, I won't even put any thoughts. I won't even share my thoughts. And maybe that's what the powers that be want. They want you fearful to say anything. They want you to, look at how when people supported Trump in 2016, how many people lost their jobs. And so there was this fear, I better not say anything. I better not. You should be able to vote for Kamala, vote for Trump, vote for whatever. And you don't see big balloons with Kamala Harris in a diaper. I'm thinking that the younger generation is like, I don't know how to navigate this world. So I'd rather annoy people and let people think I'm having a seizure than to engage in a conversation that is good. Now, on the other end, I do see from the younger generations, they're like, well, I don't want to have kids because it's going to hurt. The childbirth is going to be painful. Well, yeah, but that's just something we do. Or, well, I don't want to go and apply for that job because that job's going to be a lot of work. You know what I mean? So it could be that. I mean, we do need to put in the work to have discussions. But if Gen Z's like, I don't want to be accused of something, and then somebody holds it against me later, I don't blame them for wanting to sit quiet. 1-877-Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this week, the Supreme Court is going to be looking back at the Birthright Citizenship. And I believe this Wednesday, they are going to be looking at arguments. And Trump had signed an executive order as soon as he came into office, January 20th, 2025. Looking at the post-Civil War 14th Amendment and an 86-year-old federal law that has been misinterpreted. What was supposed to be for children of slaves and people who were dragged from their homes and countries to America under cruel conditions and now free and should be able to live in America free, granting citizenship to the kids and everybody. That is what the 14th Amendment allowed, which we all support. I mean, I hope everybody supports. That makes sense. However, it has taken a turn where we have 1.5 million illegal immigrant children in the United States, families who arrived at the border or used, cartel members to bring them over and throw them over the wall and things like that. And these poor kids. What do we do with the illegal immigrant kids? And then also you had individuals who, and I remember there was a movie with Matt Perry and Salma Hayek where she was pregnant, and there were a bunch of people giving birth along the border so the baby could be American, and so movies have made jokes about it, and it wouldn't have been a big deal if we were only talking about one or two cases. But it's become a big deal because the schools are overwhelmed and tax dollars are going to schools, and children are saying that their teacher is struggling because these kids can't speak English, so the teacher is trying to teach them, and so we sit and wait for the teachers to help these other kids, and it's a mess. And so there's a lot of back and forth. Again, what should have happened is we should have done under Biden what every other country does and maintain a robust legal immigration process and not let the border be open such that now we have this mess. Interestingly, when my father came to the United States, he could have, gotten married and tried to get citizenship that way, and he didn't want to. He wanted to legitimately go through the citizenship process. And then he got married, and then he had me. Because he didn't want there to be any risk, because this is how countries do things. Countries, not just America, but, if you at all didn't follow everything to a T, you could get deported. So his fear in the 1960s and 70s was, I don't want to get deported. My family, after decades and having had to escape the Holocaust, able to finally get to America, we're going to get citizenship legitimately because they're offering it. We're going to learn the language, take the test, do everything we're supposed to. And then once we're citizens, then we'll get married, and then I'll have my kid. And that's why I was born in the 70s and not in the 60s when my father came to this country. Because he didn't want any possibility of him getting deported because something wasn't done exactly correct. And that was his fear. That was a lot of people's fear. There was a lot of people that came here illegally, and they're like, okay, hopefully we don't get found. Hopefully we don't get found. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So now there's a glut of a lot of children in schools. Schools are overpopulated. And what happens when the taxes are only covering X amount of kids and teachers are underpaid, overworked, there's not enough resources? Well, we're starting to see this. We're starting to see the proficiencies go down. I'm not saying it's only because of issues with illegal immigrant children, but there's obviously less one-on-one. Something's getting missed where these kids are not learning. And the Plyer versus Doe is a Supreme Court decision that gave children of people living in the country illegally rights to a free public education, which is really nice. And we do want these kids to get education. It's not their fault. Their parents snuck them across the border or took advantage of the Biden years. It's not the kids' fault. These kids have a right to an education. But what do we do with the money? Now, George Soros gave $3 billion to this, or apparently there's a lot of money, about $3 billion went to the No Kings rallies. Maybe what we need to do is have illegal immigrant kids, or where English is a second language and they're struggling, to use that money for those schools to teach them. I mean, right now they're being absorbed into classes where the teacher can't speak Spanish and these kids aren't learning. And then the American kids are also struggling because the teacher, has an overcrowded class and they can't, they can't give everybody the one-on-one. Here's the lesson. If you don't understand it, just go home and talk to your parents. It's a shame. Representative Chip Roy from Texas says it's time we meet the moment to overturn Plyer versus Doe. It's time for Congress and the courts to address the glaring failures of this court decision and finally alleviate Texans and Americans alike from this burden. So they're concerned about the students. They're not learning well, even though we have this ruling that they should be able to go to the public schools for free. Are they really learning? Are there the resources? Are all teachers bilingual? So Chip Roy says this should prompt a broader discussion about demands placed on schools and educators who must use limited resources meant for American students by American taxpayers to help immigrant children achieve proficiency standards. And, I've spoken to teachers. They don't want to say it publicly, but they're like, Dahlia, there's no way I could get these kids to pass. Well, then these kids need to be in a proper school or they need to be back home. And so it's not, on one end we could be like, well, we want to be open to everybody but again, for me, I want to preserve the sanctity of the legal immigration process. You have people in line and they deserve to have their chance because they're doing the process properly. And we have a lot of kids that came across the border. And we want to help them. We want to feed them. We want to give them baby formula. But this country didn't have enough baby formula. They don't have enough teachers. They don't have enough funds in schools. And so, if these kids are from Guatemala or El Salvador or Mexico or Costa Rica or, there's going to be a push to get them back to their home district so they could go to school and learn properly. There's only so much America can do, and I want to help them. I mean, I supported the fact that while the kids are here and Biden is screwing around, these kids don't, diminish their academic skills. They're able to still progress. But do we have enough teachers and resources for individuals that aren't American and don't speak the language? We don't. And we need to be honest about that. And then, if they are not becoming legal citizens, what is the safest and smartest thing for them? Is it to kick the can down the road and hope a Democrat gets elected and then they might be okay until the next, it's one of these things where I don't want to see people deported. But unfortunately, if they're not going to excel or do well here, and they're always going to be in fear that they're going to be deported, they might need to start at the back of the line. Or they might need to have a more stable home environment. I do not want anybody going back to a country where they hurt their citizens. And those individuals looking for refugee status, we have a process for. But unfortunately, helping 1.5 million undocumented kids and more and rising, we have got to come up with a better way. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Carl Murray here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So some people are upset at the Pope's comments, thinking that the Pope was anti-Trump. Now, I really don't get involved with any of that. When the Pope speaks, I listen. I've always been very humbled by what popes do and what popes are. We're in Easter week, coming up to Easter. Just finished Palm Sunday. We have Passover starting Wednesday night. It's a very, very solemn time of year. But I do not like politics getting infused in religion or religion getting infused in politics. They're supposed to be mutually exclusive, completely separate. So I'm not sure what's going on here. So what's being reported by Reuters is the Pope Leo, says the Lord rejects prayers of leaders who wage wars. He says that God rejects the prayers of leaders who start wars and have hands full of blood. Now, I'm a little confused by that, because when you have somebody like Hitler or the Iran regime killing tens of thousands of their citizens, they're evil. God is not happy. That's my guess with them. Absolutely. But when you have throughout the Bible God instructing King Saul, King David, to protect Israel, protect the Hebrews, to protect innocent individuals from the Hittites, Amalekites, Philistines. When God instructs King Saul, King David, King Solomon, but how is he then rejecting the prayers of them? Now, addressing tens of thousands in St. Peter's Square, which is beautiful. You got to go to St. Peter's. You got to go to Vatican City. Celebrating the Holy Week leading up to Easter. We have 1.4 billion Catholics in this world, hopefully more. The pontiff called the conflict atrocious, and that Jesus cannot be used to justify any wars. He says, "This is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, whom no one can use to justify war. Jesus does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying, even though you may make many prayers, I will not listen. Their hands are full of blood." Now, people think he is discussing the Iran war. Now, you would think the Pope would be discussing the murders that the Iranian regime was doing to their civilians, or Russia and what they were doing to Ukraine, and how they're working together, and now there's nuclear capabilities. And you would think, the Pope would be in line for this to get stopped. But instead, it's it looks like he's against the other side, the one that wants to stop that. And again, maybe people are misreading it. But we have got to keep politics out of it. So, again, I'm not a pope. I'm not a rabbi. But being an American, if you're hearing that Russia is taking satellite imagery, giving it to Iran so Iran could go and attack American bases, if Americans are getting killed from Iranians and being taken hostage and things like that, if Iran is funding Hamas, who then murdered thousands of Israelis, including Americans, and took hostages, there's sometimes the best defense is offense, or vice versa. So are we waging wars to just wage wars, or are we stopping tyranny? Look at what's happening in Nigeria with Christians being murdered. And Trump said he'll stop that. When you read the Bible, God demanded that you could say with the story of Exodus that Moses started a war with the Pharaoh and Ramses II by saying, let our people go. We're going to be out of here. And if you don't, God's going to be sending plagues, and God did. He sent the 10 plagues. So you could say, technically, we waged war with Ramses II and Egyptians. But God wanted the Hebrews out of Egypt. Some stayed. But the majority said, we're going to go with Moses. We're out of here. It's a beautiful story, what happened in Exodus. But it was bloody. And then a lot of Egyptians died in the Red Sea. But that's what God wanted. So I'm a little confused because, again, it's, and this is something that I've been struggling with. Having, we come from a Judeo-Christian family, so we have Christians and Jews. And the Old Testament and New Testament, there's a lot of similarities. But sometimes it's almost the opposite. God wanted something done and followed in the Old Testament, but then now, no, it's not in the New Testament. So it is a little hard to reconcile. But waging a war for evil purposes. So let's say America decides to go to war to take over Greenland. Okay, then I would think God would be mad about that. But stopping Iran from killing any more innocent people, I would think God would be happy. And so I'm surprised that the Pope would, get involved with that when the rest of the world understands the Pope's a smart guy. I mean, the world knows what Iran is. The world knows Iran is working with Russia and China. Iran is bad. Unless he was talking about Iran. Most people aren't thinking that. They're thinking he's talking about Trump. But this is a concern because we don't want people disliking religion any more than people already do. We love that religion is coming back, that people are finding spirituality, they're finding peace. And I don't care if you're Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, or even atheist. But having your moral compass, having some sort of spirituality that can guide you, even if it's through nature, I don't mind that. It's a beautiful thing. Unless you try to use it to justify to do bad things. But when your clergy is looking at the Bible in one way, when the Bible says something else, it is a little unsettling. And so I'm not sure what's going on. Now, I understand Jesus, very peaceful, spread love, spread beautiful teachings. And he was not in this position where, like King David, he had to, or King Saul, he had to follow what God said in terms of annihilating enemies of Israel and hurting innocent people. And he wasn't given the same instructions that anointed kings were to do those jobs, to ensure that people would be safe. But God's job for him was to, spread teachings and love, etc. And so, it's, I hope this Easter and Passover is a time for unity and not divide, and definitely not a time for politics. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.